Hi, everyone, and welcome to Treating Trauma with Yoga. I'm Celeste Mendelson, and we're going to be working today with a daily practice that will help you to stay calm and regulated and start your day in a way that feels comfortable and easy, as opposed to walking into the day with our hair on fire, right? Waiting for the next thing to happen because we jumped out of bed at 8:45 and we've got to be at work at 9:30 or something like that. Didn't get breakfast, grabbed the cup of coffee, ran out the door. Not the good way to start the day. So yeah, if you were checking, that's not the way we're going to do that. So what I will tell you is that used to be me because I would stay up really late and I didn't get enough sleep. And then the next day I woke up exhausted because I didn't sleep well, and I was late, right? So I ran out the door with my cup of coffee, maybe grabbed a piece of toast or a croissant or something like that for breakfast, and I was off. All of which does nothing for people who are living with the effects of trauma in their lives, but dysregulate them even farther and make it even more difficult to walk through your day with ease and grace. So we're going to shift the pattern. And I know that that's going to be tough, especially for some of you who have been doing this for a long time. Start gradually. You know, the first part of having a good morning is getting a good night's sleep. So if you have work at 9 o'clock in the morning, give yourself 2 hours before you have to leave the house to go to work, if you have to leave the house to go to work. If you're like me at the moment, you're working from home and virtually, so that saves me the drive. But give yourself at least 2 hours. That'll allow you to get up, to do the things you need to do to take care of yourself, to get in a morning practice, to have a little meditation, to have a good breakfast, and then get yourself settled for your work or settled for your drive, whichever. And I'm not suggesting that you don't have a cup of coffee if you want a cup of coffee. I allow myself a cup a day. I used to drink more, but it doesn't agree with me. So I have one because I really like the taste of coffee. Crazy, right? Anyway, so when I get up in the morning, this is what I do. The first thing I do as I wake up, and I try to remember to do this every day. I'm not going to tell you that I'm perfect, but I try to say thank you because I am present, I am alive, I am hopefully rested and ready to move into my day and be the person that I really want to be and show up that way in the world. The second thing I do is I go into the bathroom, take care of the necessary ablutions, which includes for me doing something that's an ancient Ayurvedic and yoga practice, which is called oil pulling. So you take a little bit of coconut oil and you put it in your mouth. If you're like me these days, the coconut oil is really hard in the container because it's cold. So, so you're going to take that coconut oil and scrape it out of there and put some in your mouth, and then you swish it around in your mouth for 10 or 20 minutes. And I know that sounds crazy, right? Because it's like 10 or 20 minutes just with the swishy, the coconut oil. Yes. Do I just sit and do that? No, I am feeding the dog and feeding the cat. I am making the coffee, putting things out that I'm going to want for breakfast, getting the clothes that I'm going to want to wear to work today. So I'm doing things while I'm swishing it in my mouth. And 10, 20 minutes just goes by like nothing. I know it doesn't seem like it will. You don't want a big mouthful because if you have a big mouthful, you'll probably need to spit it out sooner than you would otherwise. If you just have a little bit and you just swish it, it'll work really well. It helps to do a couple of things. It helps to clean your teeth and your mouth and remove bacteria. So when you brush your teeth, everything will detach and will come out when you rinse your mouth, and you won't have that stuff left there from the overnight. It also helps to remove stain from your teeth, and that can be helpful if you like coffee, right? Okay. Um, so the other thing is if you have dry mouth, doing the coconut oil in your mouth, the oil pulling is really helpful for that as well. Um, Another thing that I have noticed as I've gotten older is, yes, I have dry mouth, but the other thing that I also have is a tendency to sleep with my mouth open. And I don't tend to snore unless I've got some kind of congestion going on, but I will breathe with my mouth open all night. So my mouth gets really dry. And I have learned um, a technique from a fellow yogi. Um, and it comes from Dr. Buteyko, which if you look him up online, you'll see he's got a whole course on breathing and how to breathe effectively. And I find it fascinating. One of the things that he suggests is using a special kind of tape to tape your mouth at night so that you can get a good night's rest and not be breathing through your mouth all night. And yes, I do that. And I know that sounds weird. And yes, I have gotten comments from my boyfriend, but I will tell you that it works really well. And my mouth does not end up as dry as it would otherwise in the morning. Some people have a lot of problems with dry mouth to where it actually ends up, their mouth is so dry that it feels like it's burning. I find that this is really effective for that. So that's part of my practice. I urge you to try it and see what you think of it. Give it a week, maybe even 2, before you give it up and say, never mind. You may notice the difference if you do. The most important thing that I say to all of my clients is that it's important to notice what's true for you. And sometimes we don't really get to know that until we've been doing something for a little while. So I do recommend giving it some time before you make a decision. Give it a week, give it 2. Say, yeah, no, that's not for me. Or, you know what? I am noticing something different. And maybe there's a reason to keep it. Just check it out and see what you think. So after I brush my teeth and wash my face and brush my hair, it's time to take care of everything else in my life, right? So just like you, if you have children or you have pets or you have a husband or a wife or other people in your life and your family that you need to interact with, you can go do that. But shortly thereafter, find the time for yourself to just sit and be present with you. I like to do a practice in the morning, which includes a cup of tea, which I also have here. This is herbal tea and not caffeinated, because it's too late in the day for caffeine for me. And that's another thing. You may find that if you drink caffeine throughout the day, it'll keep you awake at night or make you jittery and irritable during the day. So you can explore the idea of not drinking caffeinated beverages during your day after a certain time during the day, like maybe 3 o'clock or 5 o'clock. I happen to be really sensitive to caffeine, and I know that. So my 1 cup of coffee in the morning is my caffeinated beverage. That's it. That's enough for me. You get to decide what's right for you. And I strongly suggest that you really pay attention to that and do what works for your body, knowing what that is. It isn't important what works for somebody else. It's important what works for you. So what I do in the morning, and this is what I'm suggesting for you, is I'm going to show you the practice that I use to stretch. And if you like this practice and you want a copy of it, just let me know. Okay, you can send me, if you're tuned in here, you can chat with me live, or you can send me a message on YouTube on this video. You can find me at treatingtraumawithyoga.com. You can also find me at Treating Trauma with Yoga, the page and the private Facebook group on Facebook, and also Treating Trauma with Yoga on Instagram. So send me a message. Let me know you want a copy of this. I'll be happy to send you a copy. It has examples And they're not the silly little stick figures. They actually look like people doing whatever it is that we're going to do. So the first thing that you want to do is check in with your breath and notice how you're breathing. Is your breathing fast or slow? Does it feel like there's places that it's stopping and starting? Does it feel restricted in any way? Just notice that. Notice what's happening with your breath, because it can be different on a daily basis. It depends on how you slept the night before, how you're feeling today. Just be aware. And as you breathe out and breathe in, I like to use an affirmation. You could call it a mantra. It is, but you can call it a mantra, you can call it an affirmation, it doesn't matter. And it's just the phrase, I am breathing out as you exhale, and I am breathing in as you inhale. The reason I do that is because it's the same number of syllables. And so as you say that, breathing out and breathing in, it makes you conscious of doing that, but it also creates the even breath so that your inhale and exhale are about the same length. And why is that important? That's important because you want to, again, regulate your breathing. So your inhale and exhale the same creates balance in your central nervous system. So your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous system are balanced, and one is not higher than the other. And that's important. It's important for you to have the awareness of what's happening in your body and notice if you're anxious or depressed, because there's also things you can do to help regulate that kind of an imbalance. But first thing, you just want even breath. And as you find that even breath, by breathing out and breathing in, notice the flow of breath. You could put your hand on your belly and your hand on your chest. Notice if your belly is moving, your chest is moving as you inhale. Notice what happens as you're exhaling. Is there movement? Is there expansion when you inhale? Contraction when you exhale? Or is there contraction when you inhale and expansion when you exhale? Just be present with what you notice for a moment. And as you find that, as you find the breath and notice what's happening there, even breath, helping to regulate your system. On your next inhale, look up at the ceiling. And on your next exhale, let your head gently come down, your chin to your chest. Inhale, look up. Maybe opening your eyes wide and your mouth wide. Stretching your jaw. You probably heard mine crack, huh? And release, chin to chest. And follow the breath and the movement of the breath in the body. As you inhale, look up. Open your mouth wide. And gently bring your chin to your chest. And back and forth, continuing this motion. Stretching your head and your neck. Noticing the sensation of stretch in the jaw. And if you feel tightness in the jaw or intensity in that stretch, that's okay. it just tells you that you have accumulated tension here. Maybe you clench your teeth or grind your teeth at night, or maybe you just hold stress in those muscles. And you could also do a gentle massage of the face here. And I like to do that with my knuckles. It feels particularly good, I think. And I work my knuckles in to the area where the upper jaw and the lower jaw connect, because that's where I tend to hold a lot of tension. And then on an inhale, bring your head to center. And as you exhale, just let the head go over to one side. And it doesn't really matter whether that's your right side or your left. Just let it go that way. And then inhale to center and then over the other way. So back and forth from side to side, following the inhale and the exhale as you bring your head over. And notice the tendency to want to bring your shoulder up to your ear, and counteract that tendency, keeping the shoulder down. There are very few people that I know that can bring their head all the way over to their shoulder. Some can, but not a whole lot of them. And I'm not one that does, just so I'm not sure if I can move my hair enough so you can see. Maybe. Right? And see, my head comes over to the side, but it doesn't come all the way down to my shoulder. My ear is not on my shoulder. If my ear was on my shoulder would have to be up there. And that is not the idea. So just moving your head and your neck from side to side. Noticing the stretch and awareness of any other sensations that show up for you. And then as you come back to center, lift your shoulders toward your ears and roll them back. Inhaling them up and exhaling them back. Now, I've had people ask me, do we roll our shoulders forward too? And the answer is no, because we do enough of that generally during the day as we hunch over our computers or our phones or our tables or our paperwork or whatever it is. So this is actually done to counteract that. And one more time. Bring your shoulders up and roll them back. And as you're sitting in this cross-legged position, now I will say, you don't have to sit on the floor cross-legged. That's another thing. If sitting on the floor cross-legged is not comfortable for you, find a chair or a stool that you can use that gives you room to move and your feet can be flat on the floor. But you don't have to sit on the floor like this. In order to sit like this, you really need to have open hips. And if your hip bones are not open, but tend to be more closed, this can be very difficult. And you'll see people do this. They end up sitting with their knees up like that and their backs rounded because there's just no way for them to get comfortable. And I don't believe that yoga needs to be a torture practice. So I really think that if it's something you're going to want to stick with and do consistently on a daily basis, it needs to be something that's comfortable for your body. So sitting like this is fine. Sitting on a chair or on a stool or pillows is fine. I'm sitting up a little bit on what's called a zafu cushion. I just find it a little bit more comfortable for me. But you don't even have to do that. If you're comfortable just sitting on the floor, you can just sit on the floor. What is important is that you notice what's true for you. You be aware of and intentionally follow what happens in your body when you do different things. If you notice that you're starting to check out, if you're starting to, your mind is going elsewhere, you're thinking about what you're going to have for breakfast, or, oh, I should have taken the dog out, or, well, maybe I need to go check on and figure out what clothes I'm going to wear today, or whatever it is. Bring yourself back and center into the practice. It doesn't have to be a long one. And as you exhale, we're just going to kind of come around and inhale up. In yoga, they call these Sufi circles, as you move around over your legs. And if you're sitting in a chair doing this, your legs can be apart. So they're open, your thighs are open on the chair or not. I tend to find it more comfortable if I'm doing it in a chair to have my thighs open, but you get to decide what feels the best to you. And you're going to do probably like, I don't know, anywhere between 6 and 10 of these moves. And then switch. And I have another experiment for you. So what you'll learn about me is that I really enjoy things that allow me to know myself better, because that is something that I actually had to work at. When I first started doing a regular yoga practice, I realized that I had a lot of trouble connecting with my body, and I did not know why that was then. But I learned over time that the problem was that I have a trauma history, and one of the things that happens with a trauma history is we disconnect from our bodies because it isn't safe to feel what's happening frequently. And so we shut it out, we numb it out, we don't pay attention to it anymore. The problem with that is that the body has a lot to tell us, and most of it is pretty important. And if we're not paying attention to what it is the body is telling us, we're missing vital information that can impact the way that we live our lives on a daily basis. So the practice that we're doing here is about being mindful as you do these things. Notice what's happening now and make your next decision from what it is that you notice, right? If something that you're doing is uncomfortable, is painful, is not working for you, then we need to change that. You don't want to continue to do something that doesn't work for you. And you won't probably anyway, but you'll just say, nah, I don't like that. That's not for me. As opposed to, when I do these circles, I find that one side feels restricted. So there's a reason for that. And so we're going to talk about that too. One of the things that I discovered as I was moving through more investigative yoga, I don't know what else to call it. I started training as a yoga therapist, which is what I am today. And I found that they really emphasize what's happening in your body and paying attention to that so that you can relate that to the yoga therapist that you're working with so that they can help you shift as you need to create a practice that works for you and influences positively the things that you're trying to change. So what I realized one day is that if I'm sitting with this leg out, my right leg out on the outside, so my foot is on the outside, and I'm turning toward that knee and around, as I get about here, I get a little hitch in my left hip. And the same thing happens if I'm doing it this way and I go this way and I come to about that place and then there's a hitch in that hip. What I've learned is that the leg that's on the outside that hip has more flexibility because it isn't restricted by being held inside. And so if I move in the direction of my outside foot, that hip is now open or a little bit more open. So I can move more freely and it's easier. Okay. And it's true on the other side too. Now, I encourage you to investigate Notice what's true for you, because it might be different. I particularly notice that hip thing with the next warm-up movement that I do. I like to start by bringing my arms up and reaching for the ceiling, ultimately to bring one hand down and tip over to the side. Now, you will notice my right leg, my outside leg, the leg that allows the hip to open more, is now there, and I'm coming over on that side because that hip is more open and it allows me to come down farther and stretch better. And you'll see, and there's no way to prove it to you other than for you to do it for yourself to notice, and come back up to center. And if you were to switch your legs and bring that right leg on the inside and now come over, you may notice, as I do, that now there's a restriction and my elbow doesn't go all the way down to the ground here unless I want to lift up my left hip in order to get it there, which I don't. So I have learned over time that it makes a difference which leg is on the outside. And that's something for you to explore for yourself, and I encourage you to do that. If you find that what I am telling you is accurate for you, then by all means, switch legs when you do the circles and when you do the stretch, the side stretch. If you find that it's not true for you, then never mind. You don't have to do it that way. Just notice what's true for you. Now, the other thing that I notice, and that you may notice at some point in time, is that one side is easier than the other in general. I have more flexibility on my right side than I do on my left. And I think that has to do with handedness for me, because I am left-handed. So that's my strong side. My right side is my flexible side, right? So when I am stretching over like this, I've got more stretch on that side. When I go this way, oops, change my feet. There we go. I've got more flexibility here in this hip than I do here. Make sense? Anyway, so check for yourself what's true, because that's really way more important than what's true for me, except me. So it's important that you pay attention to yourself, right? Okay. So having stretched out your hips, you've stretched out your shoulders, you've stretched out your jaw. These are the three places that we tend to hold the most tension in our bodies. We're going to do a couple more things. One of them is cat-cow, and you can do cat-cow seated. You're arching and rounding your back here. If you like doing cat-cow seated, it's perfect to do it that way. The other way you could do it is on your hands and knees, and it is the most traditional way of doing cat-cow, is on your hands and knees. And I encourage you to try both and see what works best for you. Planting your hands down on the mat and spread your fingers apart. You want your hands right underneath your shoulders. And then let your hips be right over your knees, and then lift your belly up as you roll your shoulders back. You're in tabletop position here. So you have a flat back. In my first yoga classes, they used to say, imagine that you're balancing a glass of champagne on your back. Well, that doesn't work for me because I don't like champagne. But besides that, the idea really is that your back is straight. Your backbone is straight. And you want to keep your head and your neck aligned as well. So your head doesn't go down like that, and it shouldn't jut forward like that. Just let your head and your neck be relaxed in this position. And then round your back as you exhale, looking down at your knees. And as you arch your back, inhale, looking up, back and forth. I am breathing in. I am breathing out. You can time the movement of your body with the rhythm of your breath. And back to center when you're ready. And I like to take my hands out wider than my shoulders for this because I have a bicep tendon that's a little cranky sometimes on my right side. My right shoulder is hyperflexible, and so it sometimes gets a little irritable. This tends to protect that shoulder. I'm going to do hip stretches now, and I'm just taking my hips over to one side. You're not coming forward into it, and you're not leaning back. You're just letting the hips come over to one side. So you're stretching the hip flexors. For me, that's my right side, and then back to center and over to the left. If my hand were at shoulder width, I'd be putting an overstretch and too much weight on that shoulder. So if you have shoulder issues, that's something to be aware of. You can explore for yourself whether it makes a difference for you. And if you're doing this and there's like, oh my God, that feels so good going on in your hips, that's awesome. You can stay, if there's one side that really feels like it needs some extra stretching, you can stay on that side, maybe moving forward and back. Just let your body decide when enough is enough. Breathing into that, letting yourself relax into the stretch, noticing what that's like as you release tension. And then when you're ready, come back to center and tuck your toes and walk your hands back to your knees. Now, this is not a yoga practice that is designed for people who are super flexible and super strong and do aerobics and yoga and gymnastics on a regular basis. This is a practice designed for real people. That being said, you may or may not be comfortable on your knees. So that's why I showed you cat-cow seated. You can do the stretch that we were just doing for the hips if you have knee issues by just doing this stretch, right? Where you're rolling over to one side. You're lying on your back. And I'm not lying all the way on my back because I have my little battery pack on my back and I don't want to smush it. But you're twisting to one side and you're letting gravity release your legs down to the ground. And as you do that, you're going to look over your fingertips on the opposite side. So my knees are going to my left and my right hand is where I'm looking. And you can do that on both sides. You can roll back and forth from side to side. You can do all kinds of things. You can do, I like this one. This is one of my favorites. Now I'm rolling over that thing again. All right. So this is called windshield wipers. I like that very much too for stretching in the hips. You could do that. So explore the practices and find the ones that work for you because it's not always the same for everybody. And if you are looking for something that allows you to stretch and you're having trouble getting there and you want some help, you can always let me know. I would happily work with you one-on-one. I have a lot of clients that I have set up practices for, so that's part of what I do. If you're interested in that, drop me a note and let me know. So from this point, back to where we were. So you're on your hands and knees. Come onto your feet. Press your heels down on your mat. And you're coming into a forward fold. And you can come into a forward fold with your knees straight if that's comfortable for you. But I encourage you to try bending your knees. And I know that's not standard yoga protocol, but bend your knees and bring your belly down to your thighs. And there's a reason why. The reason why is because our belly on our thighs is a signal to our bodies that we're safe. Because this is how we were when we were little babies in the womb. And the parasympathetic nervous system is stimulated by this bellies to thighs position. So
It's very soothing to be in this position. It works standing, it works kneeling, it works on your back. It doesn't really matter where you are. If you get in this position, you'll find that you will start to feel more calm, more comfortable. So it's another reason to do this. And let your head and your neck just relax here. Notice the sensation of not carrying around that 12 to 18 pounds on your neck and shoulders. You may also notice a deeper stretch in your low back as you do this. And then bring your hands onto your elbows as you fold forward. And notice the weight of your arms now added on and what that feels like in the lower back. And from this position, we're going to do something that you usually see people in yoga classes doing in the pose of downward dog. But I would like to offer you an alternative to down dog because a lot of people have trouble with it. It can be dysregulating and uncomfortable, but you can stand in this position, which is just a forward fold, and you can lift one heel and straighten the opposite leg, and then switch to the other side, lifting the other heel and straightening the opposite leg back and forth, essentially bicycling out your feet as you would in downward dog, but you're doing it in this forward fold instead. Why? For me, because I want to focus on the stretch. I don't want to be split between focusing on the stretch in my legs and making sure that my arms and shoulders are okay, and I'm not bringing my shoulders too far forward, and all of the things that are also going on in downward dog, pressing into my hands, making sure my shoulder's safe. There's a lot of other things going on. I would rather focus just on this move at this point in time. And when you feel like you've done enough of that, you can bend your knees a lot, reach your arms out to the sides. This is not an official yoga pose, but I live by the beach, so I call this seagull. And when you're ready, lifting up, bring your arms overhead, and exhale, bring your hands to your heart. And then stand tall. I'm trying to stand so that the light works here for you. As you're standing, this position, just standing on your mat, rooting down through your feet, is called mountain pose. And we're not going to worry about the Sanskrit names today. So as you're pressing down onto the mat with your feet, I'm going to encourage you to try a couple things. One, lift your toes. And as you lift your toes off the mat, you're holding onto the mat with your heels and the balls of your feet. And you can either just spread your toes apart and press them down, or one toe at a time, bring them down to the mat. Rooting down through the toes, through your feet. Engaging the muscles in your legs, feeling the muscles in your shins and the front of your thighs. Engaging the belly. Rolling your shoulders back, letting your arms relax by your sides. Take that deep breath in and let that breath go. And as you inhale, reach your arms up. And exhale, fold forward. Inhale, come halfway up with your hands on your shins. Flat back. Exhale as you fold in. And inhale, reach out and come all the way up. And bring your hands down to your heart. Inhale, reach up. Maybe even reach back if that feels good to you. Exhale, dive forward. Inhale, halfway up, flat back. Exhale, fold in. Inhale, reach out, come all the way up. Reaching for the ceiling. And then bring your arms down and your hands to your heart. And one more time, just like that. Inhale, reach up.
Maybe reach back, fold forward, flat back, fold in. Bend your knees as you need to, and inhale, reach out, come all the way up. Exhale your hands to your heart. And if that's what you have, if that's all you have time for in your day, that's enough. You've stretched out all of the areas of your body. You've moved everything. You've loosened yourself up from sleeping all night. You've hopefully worked out anything that needed to be worked out. You can walk forward from here into your day. If you have a little more time, I encourage you to do more. If you feel like you want to be more active, you can do a more active practice. It's up to you. And I'll come back and we'll do some of those things next time. What I would also like to suggest is if your choice is between doing another 10 minutes of active practice and doing 10 minutes of relaxation, take the relaxation, especially now, especially with all of the craziness happening in the world, with all of the uncertainty with with viruses and politics and everything else. Give yourself the time to focus and center in on yourself. Moving back down onto your mat. You can either lie down in the final relaxation pose of yoga, which is just like this. It's just lying down flat on the mat. Now you can bring something under your knees if you have a bolster. You can put a bolster under your knees. If you don't have a bolster, but it isn't comfortable on your back to lie flat, I encourage you to try bringing your knees together and just letting them rest on each other. That's actually what I frequently do when I'm doing my practice. I do have bolsters, but I just find this comfortable. And just breathe out and breathe in, letting yourself relax into the support of the floor and the mat beneath you. And if you have some nice music, some soothing music that you like, you could play that during this time period of movement and relaxation. Give yourself the things that help you feel your best. I encourage you not to turn on the news, look at your email or any of that stuff until after you've had this time to yourself in the morning. As you lie in that relaxation pose, with your eyes closed, or maybe even just soft, with your eyelids maybe at half mast, that's fine too. Just let yourself relax. Noticing the sensations in your feet, allowing your feet to relax. Maybe even let the feet open so that the hips release and the legs are easy and relaxed. And let your belly move gently with your breath without trying to control it or change it. Just notice your inhale and your exhale. Natural and easy. Let your shoulders relax down onto the mat. Allowing your body to rest. Releasing the muscles in your jaw. Noticing your tongue And if you feel it pressed up against your teeth or up tight against the roof of your mouth, let the tongue be loose in your mouth and easy too. And your eyes, open or closed, is fine. However you relax more comfortably is what's important. Just let yourself be here for a few minutes before you go on with the rest of your day. And you may find when you start out with this practice that 10 minutes is too long to lie there. Your mind starts going and you start thinking about the things that you need to do. I encourage you to give yourself 3 minutes. Start with that. Eventually, you may be able to move it up to 5 minutes and maybe 10. At some point in time, if it's comfortable for you to do so, you might investigate a meditation practice. There's lots of different ways that you can meditate. You can meditate sitting up, and paying attention to your breath and noticing as a thought crosses your mind and labeling it a thought and letting it go. Or you could listen to a guided meditation. You could listen to an extended guided meditation, which takes you on a journey. You can do those lying down or sitting up. There's no one right way to meditate. You can also do walking meditations, and I encourage you to try one of those if you have a labyrinth anywhere near you. That's a lovely place to walk. Usually you may find them at health centers or spiritual centers. And if you have something like that, just investigate and notice if there is one. And we can talk about doing walking meditations another time. I'll be happy to do that live. It would be fun. Allow yourself to find what works for you and make it your regular daily practice. If you have a beach near you or a park near you, part of your daily practice could be a walk in nature with your feet on bare ground if possible. That's the best. If you can do a yoga practice outside, that's wonderful too. I encourage you to do whatever it is that works for you, that allows you to center in and be mindful and be present in your own body before you go out into the world and start doing all of the things that we do. Bring yourself in and center. Find your origin, the place that you want to come from, where you want to be in your day, so that you can come forth authentically, realistically, honestly, and with love. That's how we want to show up, right? We don't always do that. I don't always do that. But it is what I hope for. It is what I start out with first thing in the morning. When you bring your practice to a close, if you have a religion or a spiritual practice that you embrace, take a moment and focus on that. If nothing else, you could bring your hands to your heart. And just take a moment and take a breath or two here. Just be present with yourself, feeling the sensations in your body and the awareness of the work that you've just done to ensure the best possible outcome for your day. And then bring your hands to your forehead for clear thoughts, to your lips for a clear voice, and to your heart for clear intentions. In yoga, there is a phrase that they use, which means generally the light in me sees the light in you. And that's namaste. Namaste. Thank you for sticking with me for this practice this evening. I will be back next week and we will do something a little different. the next piece of this puzzle. And I am grateful for everybody that is joining me here. If you need to get in touch with me, you can leave me a message here on YouTube. You can find me at treatingtraumawithyoga.com. Leave me a message there. That's my website. You can find me on Facebook, also Treating Trauma with Yoga. And I'm also on Instagram at Treating Trauma with Yoga. So I look forward to hearing from you. I will answer any questions that I can and refer you to where you can get answers if I don't have them. If you liked this video, please leave a comment, like the video below, subscribe to my channel. Until next time.